Top 10 shooting guards in the NBA going into the 2022-23 NBA season. I want to establish our power rankings before the madness begins in October because a lot of overreactions will be had and stated early months of the season. I had a really hard time making this list, I'm not gonna lie. Really hard. And in the point guard video, I made a mistake because I did say that all the shooting guard list in comparison is just so, the talent is just so much weaker. I don't know, I said some bullshit. I was wrong. Superstars like the top 3 point guards in the NBA are probably better than every shooting guard, I would say. Maybe the top 4 point guards even. The 1 through 8 here, or 1 through 9 even maybe, are kind of all on the same level for me. I really struggled, especially with the top 6, finding an order that I liked. This list is based on where these guys are slotted to play this year. We are in an era of basketball that is very positionless, as positionless as it has ever been. The difference between a 2 guard and a 3, you might be playing 3 guards at a time. This is guys who played the 2, who are going to start at the 2 next year. It's not necessarily prototypical shooting guard player. DeJounte Murray is on this list. He's not a shooting guard. Previously in the NBA, he is playing the 2 this year in Atlanta. He's on this list because of that. So we're just looking at who's going to be the starting 2 on each team and the top 10, how that stacks up like a true power ranking. So let's get into this. Do I feel bad putting a 4-time NBA champion at number 10 on this list? A little bit. It kind of feels like a crime. He's got the pedigree, mentally prepared for whatever game he has to play. Doesn't matter who he's playing. He's seen it all. He's seen the best competition, but he's also been on the best team. And that's not just because he's a great player. He's a great complementary player. He can't be your number 1 guy in the way that he plays, especially not now. I think now, like, current Klay Thompson is not quite prime Klay Thompson, and current Klay Thompson is still a good player. We saw him in the finals. He was far from the best player on the court on a given night. He didn't have his patented game. He had 1 or 2 really good games in the playoffs this year, but he was borderline not even really a star player a lot of times on the court. He had some really rough outings. I don't really think he's an elite defender either at this point. Obviously, he doesn't really offer anything as far as a playmaker, rebounder, mixing it up down low. He can switch a little bit on the defensive end, but yeah, he's really a product of the system at this point especially, and I think definitely a less important player to the team than Andrew Wiggins for sure, we can say at this point. Individually as a player, I can put him over any of these guys. Number 9, we got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now, we're starting off like another aspect that makes this list really hard. You do have to weigh what you value in a player. And this is like obviously a very current list. I'm not talking about accomplishments, achievements here. I'm just talking about who I think is better right now. If you're prepared to play in a high intensity playoff atmosphere, that's one thing. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has played in that on the Oklahoma City Thunder, I believe when he was a second-year player. Oh, and on the Clippers when he was a rookie too. I feel like we're so far from that version of him because he was not a number 1 guy on the team, not nearly. And now he's literally his entire team pretty much. And he put up some monster numbers last year, and people might point to shooting percentages. I just can't entertain any of that stuff. Literally, who the fuck do you want him to pass the ball to? Of course, his 3-point percentage is probably not going to be that good. He's shooting a lot of tough off-dribble step-back threes, high volume. SGA is an incredibly demoralizing isolation player. I think he can get his shot against anybody in a one-on-one. Incredible at breaking down his defender, getting to the rack, making a play, or finishing with either hand. Footwork is incredible. He's just supremely skilled. We haven't seen what he can do on a big stage in these huge games. And that's why I think he's a little bit lower on this list also, because there's just so much good comp on the list. Hard for me to put him over guys that are more accomplished because he's been playing on a team like the Thunder. He can put up monster stats because he's going to be dribbling the ball all game. People can say empty numbers. You watch the guy play, he's clearly a great player. Number 8, I'm going with Zach LaVine. I don't love having to put him this low. Coming off a surgery, he wasn't nearly himself down the stretch of last season in comparison to what he had been at the beginning of the year. Zach, another guy that might have a reputation as a career loser, but it's just obviously not his fault. You look at the best teams that he's played on outside of in Minnesota, where he was still kind of growing and then he tears his ACL before they can really jump to that next level and make the playoffs. But in Chicago, literally the second best player that he had to play with before last year was Thaddeus Young. He had some garbage teams. I can't put any blame on him for not taking our team to the playoffs. He was literally our only player. He was still able to shoot efficiently from the floor, and especially the 3-point line, where he's just a laser shooter. Incredible athlete, obviously, but just all around, all 3 levels, incredibly dynamic scoring talent. Still has a little ways to go on the defensive end, it's not like we have the floor completely spread with shooters. The Chicago Bulls were like one of the worst shooting teams in the league last year. And if Lonzo Ball isn't healthy, it's going to be like that again. I don't know. I hate to put him this low, but it's just the uncertainty coming off of an injury like that. And on top of that, I do notice that the Bulls, like last year, we couldn't beat anybody good. Zach, I really haven't seen his signature performance against great teams in huge games. I really just haven't seen it. You know, he's great against bad teams and middling teams and games that we should win. He's great. I really do think he's going to take a leap this year, but we just have to see, because that surgery and how he responds to that, we don't know how that's going to look. And there's a lot of comp, like I said, at this position, and I do still have to see him really come out and have, you know, some signature performance against some real powerhouse teams before I'm sold on him being a true star. We know he's an all-star level player, but there's just another level that he's got to get to. Number 7, I have Anthony Edwards, one of the most exciting young players in the NBA, no doubt. And this is another thing, having him over Zach LaVine. A lot of that is just based off of the jump I think that he's destined to take this year. Like, we saw him in the playoffs. I mean, he was incredible against the Memphis Grizzlies in round 1. Best player on his team in that series at 21 years old or whatever. I mean, incredible stuff. Obviously, he's one of the most athletic players in the league. Can get his shot anytime he wants. He's got the right attitude. He seems just like a complete dog that's going to step up and not be afraid of the moment whatsoever. Good shooter, driver. I think he showed some really good stuff on defense in the playoffs as well. Like, number 6, I got DeJounte Murray. Now, this was one of the more interesting picks, and this is the pick that, like, yeah, he's a point guard, or been playing point guard in the NBA, and you say, well, the Hawks are going to have 2 point guards. I just have him here because he's going to be playing the 2. These are all guys who are going to be playing the 2. Who's going to be the best at playing the 2 next year? DeJounte Murray, I'm super high on. He didn't have the greatest game in that play-in game against the Pelicans last year. Like, we're gonna see just how bad that team he dragged to the play-in game was this year. We're gonna see. You know the Spurs are tanking, but there's a reason they got rid of him. They had got rid of Derek White at the trade deadline to make the team even worse, and they still somehow made the play-in. And his last month of the year was absolutely spectacular. Pretty much since the trade deadline, he had his best moments of the year. He just got better as it went on. That extra responsibility loaded onto his shoulders, it wasn't any problem for him. And now he's in a completely different situation. He's not going to be handling the ball as much. Staggering minutes with Trey. He's probably going to be making a lot of plays throughout the game. And even with Trey on the court, like, just having 2 guys that can break down a defense by themselves is going to be something that it's going to be scary for a lot of teams, I think. The only thing that he's missing in his game really is the shooting range. I mean, he can get his mid-range shot a little bit. I still wouldn't say he's an elite mid-range scorer. Obviously, you want him to get as far into the paint. He's an inside-out type scorer, but he's also a pure playmaker. A great team player, elevates his surrounding teammates, and that is a value that isn't present in a lot of these shooting guards. Obviously, he's a point guard. If he's a point guard playing shooting guard, you might say it's unfair because, oh, he's a point guard, so he should be a passer. But here's the thing. A lot of point guards in the NBA probably can't guard the other team's 2 or the other team's best guard. DeJounte Murray is an excellent defensive player, super versatile defender, great steals guy, and he's going to help Trae Young out in the backcourt so much just for that purpose. And not only that, he mixes it up down low, grabs a lot of rebounds, physical player, high intensity. I do think that he would flourish in a playoff setting, but we have to confirm that. I think from an all-around perspective, he is incredible. Obviously, he's not as good of a shooter as the rest of the guys on this list, but I think he makes up for it and more with the rest of what he can do on a basketball court.